Hi! Vlog Friday! I wish I had some theme song or something hip that you could be going, Vlog Friday, Vlog Friday. Don't have. Oh, I'm so glad you joined me for Vlog Friday. Today we're going to look at part 2 of Moscow Fall 1991. But first I want to say thanks to everybody. I've been getting such kind emails and text messages and direct messages on Facebook, and even people leaving really kind comments on my YouTube channel on this vlog page. So thanks so much. I really appreciate the encouragement. Basically, I'm a lonely old woman in quarantine sitting in my office talking to a camera. That's basically what I'm doing. And for those of you who've asked, how do you remember all this stuff? Well, it's called journaling. I've got a million of them. My travel journal. I have to go back there and look. Okay, let's be honest. I have to go back and check dates and names. And when was that? What was the name of that town? So because I kept good travel journals and because I kept good journals, I'm able to recall those. Not here, but there. Okay, just so you know. All right, if you remember last week, and oh, by the way, my husband told me to quit jumping up and down in the seat, and my sister Cindy sent me an article on healthy office chairs. So apparently I wiggle too much. It's just nerves, probably. Okay, so last week, if you remember, I'd gotten my $300 going out of business Pan Am ticket. Remember that? And then there was that dirty tire-marked envelope in the middle of my living room where I lived alone that had three $100 bills. Okay, so I was going to Moscow and really excited about it. And the week of, I was set to go, I think, like April 27th to fly directly into Moscow. And the week that I was supposed to fly out, Pan Am called me and they had oversold that flight. No kidding. And they only had one flight each week to Moscow. So you can imagine a lot of people wanting to return home or business. I don't know. It was packed every week and they had oversold. So they said, we need to put you on the next week. Well, I had graduation like May 12th and I was voted graduate student of the year and I was going to be speaking at commencement. So I had to be there. So I knew commencement was May 12th and I had to be back in Oklahoma by May 12th. So I talked to the Pan Am gal and I was praying. I was like, Lord, is this a sign? Because I always ask that, is this a sign that you're trying to tell me not to go? So I asked her, well, what about the next week? She goes, yeah, let me check the next week. And she goes, nope, totally booked, but we could put you out on May 3rd. And I was like, no, May 3rd is that's too close. That's kind of too close. So then I said, and this is for anywhere in the world. And she goes, it's anywhere in the world. $300 round trip ticket. Pan Am's going out of business anywhere in the world. I said, well, how about if I fly to Helsinki? I have friends there. I think I could get my visa pretty easily there. And I can take the Red Bullet. Red Bullet is an overnight train from St. Petersburg, which is right next to Helsinki, from St. Petersburg into Moscow. So, and my trips on the Trans-Siberian, I had learned about the Red Bullet. So she said, yeah, we can put you into Helsinki anytime. We've got room on, because they fly a lot more to Helsinki. So I was scheduled to go out. I think like April 27 was original, and because of Helsinki, it added an extra day, and I wanted to make sure I had time to get my train ticket. So what we ended up doing is put me on a flight April 26th from Oklahoma to Helsinki. And I got there. I got to Helsinki. I was super charged. I'd made all the arrangements with my professors, and I was teaching a class. I was teaching several journalism classes at this university. And so I was getting ready to give my students finals and was grading final papers. So I had a stack of stuff I was carrying with me that I had to do on the run, had to do it on the plane or the train or whatever, because I was working and studying. So I made all the arrangements and I flew out of Oklahoma and I landed in Helsinki like the 27th. And my friends were there. You know, it's a completely different time. I first went to Helsinki in April of 1986. I call it the Chernobyl trip, where I didn't know anybody. And I was lost and alone and things were desperate. But good, godly people from the church took me under their wings and they took care of me. Well, those individuals became my friends. And then I went back to Helsinki in 1988, October of 1988. And I rode the Trans-Siberian from Helsinki to Beijing, praying over the nation. So, and there's some interesting things I'd love to tell you about that sometime. So by now, 1991, April 1991, I had a lot of good friends in Helsinki. So some of my friends picked me up at the airport and they let me stay at their house, and I met with some of the church people. And Imo was my friend who worked for the Foreign Affairs Office of Helsinki. So he helped me get my train ticket and helped me get my visa for Moscow. So the plan was that I would take the train, the overnight train, on Sunday. And then that means I would land there on Sunday. And I would take the train on Saturday, land there on Sunday. The people of my university were meeting me there on Sunday. And then I had an appointment to meet with the rector for my big interview on Monday morning at 9. Now, I never was able to make a phone call to Moscow ever again. I'm not exaggerating. The university and I communicated through a system called wires. They would send me wires. I would send, it's different than telegraph, but you got the idea. So that's how we communicated, because I was never able to get through the phone lines ever again. So they let me know, we've confirmed you're coming in, and I let them know that I had a train ticket and I'd be coming into Moscow. And they said, well, there'll be someone to pick you up, and you have an appointment at 9 o'clock on Monday morning to meet with our rector for your big interview. Because remember, Alexander had said, you know, melody I know, melody I like, melody my friend. You, I don't know. My wife, she don't know, remember? So my friends took me to the train station, and little did I know is my group of church friends were all gathered there on the platform to pray for me and to send me off to Moscow for my big job interview, because they all knew how much I wanted to be in Russia and how much I loved Russia. And they all knew a lot more about Russia than I did by being neighbors and having such a constant threat over them. The USSR had tried several times to take over Finland, but Finland always held them off. So on the platform, people were praying for me and laying hands on me and loving me. And they'd made these big lunch bags for me. I had sandwiches and chocolate and bottles of water, and someone had stuck in toilet paper. And when I looked in there, I started kind of laughing, and they go, no, there's no toilet paper in Moscow. We have friends that told us that. So I was like, thank you. So I had these big bundles of provisions, and I got on my train, and I headed off to Moscow with one stop in St. Petersburg. We landed in Moscow, or arrived in Moscow early Sunday morning, and there was a woman there to meet me. Her name was Olga Gennadzevna, and she was probably about 40 years old, and she was classic Soviet. She was pretty, a little bit plump, wore lots of makeup, and she wore high-heel boots, which I don't understand, you know, in those with those streets. And she was very feminine and bossy. She's the bossiest woman I ever met in my whole life. So Olga Gennadzevna was the department chair for the Department of Foreign Languages. She was the head. So she met me at the train station. It was early morning, and she made arrangements for us to go on by taxi to her apartment, where she and her husband had prepared a breakfast for me. And they lived in a classic what I would call the new Soviet style. It was a fancy, new, large apartment building that probably only Communist Party members would be able to buy. It was very nice. And they were the classic magazine cover for the Soviet Union. She was educated. He was well educated. They had two beautiful daughters. Both of those girls spoke English. They had a small dog. Their apartment had all the amenities you can imagine. Now, if you're from the former Soviet Union and you know anything about this, I would say that Olga Gennadzevna and her husband were party members, but because they lived a very good and comfortable lifestyle. But I might be wrong about that. I never asked her. I never said, Olga, are you a party member? Just never said that. So when I got to the apartment, the girls were lovely, and there was a wonderful spread, and we all had a nice breakfast, and we chatted, and it was a great time, and I was impressed. I was comfortable with them. And then after breakfast, Olga wanted to take me around Moscow and show me some of the sights. So we got another taxi, and she took me around, and we saw Red Square, you know, all the big stuff. We got to see all the big stuff. And then after a quick bite of lunch, she took me over to the prophylactory. The prophylactory was the name of the place where they were going to keep me overnight, and it was free, and it was supposed to be like a guest house or a hotel. So I would have my own bedroom, and I would have a bathroom. And prophylactory means literally a place to prevent illness, prevent disease. So it was kind of like the wing of the hospital, and it was owned by the university. And if you don't understand the words that I'm saying, it's because you don't come from that system. So you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But yeah, it's bizarre. So if you can imagine, it's like a small clinic attached to the university. And they were putting me up there for my overnight so that I would be ready and close by to meet with the rector on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. So we go in, it's probably about 4 stories, and we go in, and it's creepy. And one of the things people never tell you is we, as the United States, always feared the USSR. The Soviet Union was the first in space. They had advanced technology. They were, geniuses when it came to linguistics. I mean, we always were like, oh, the USSR. But when you actually got there, I'd only been in train stations before then. In 86, 88, I'd only been in train stations. But when you actually get there, it was a third world country. The sidewalks were a shambles. The city was filthy. Things didn't run right. I mean, it was a mess. And I kept thinking, this doesn't seem like a first world country. This seems like a third world country. Things were out of repair. Things were broken. There was a lot of dirt around. People weren't dressed modernly. I don't know. In my opinion, this was not what I expected of Moscow. I knew it as the cultural center of the world and the music center of the world and arts and science and medicine. I just thought Moscow was going to rock my world, and it was a shambles. And I've been to Lagos, Nigeria, so I know what shambles are, okay? So it was a mess. So we go into this prophylactory, and it's filthy, and this is supposed to be like a medical clinic. And then I'm thinking, I hope I'm not going to get any disease. And I looked at Olga Ganatsevna and I said, and I've never had an inoculation. That's a long story. It's not political. It was because my body couldn't handle inoculations. My body couldn't handle, and some people can't. But I looked over at Olga Ganatsevna and I go, what do they treat here? Because, it's a hospital. And she says, tuberculosis. Oh, my word. So I just start pleading the blood of Jesus, So I go upstairs into my room, and I have never in my entire life, and I've been to Afghanistan, I have never seen anything like this in my life. It was filthy. It was disrepair. It was a nightmare. It was covered. I'm not exaggerating, because Daryl and I were cleaning out the basement 2 weeks ago when we were doing quarantine stuff. That left. But we went down to the basement, and I was going through my slides to try to consolidate some stuff and throw duplicates away. And I found the bedroom and the bathroom of that prophylactory, the pictures that I took when I went there in 91. I'm telling you what, it was I don't know if hellhole is cussing, and I'm sorry if it is, because I don't like to cuss, but it was a mess. And so I was stunned, and I don't think Olga even wanted to come into the room, Olga Ganatsevna, the Soviet, model. She's like, okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. I'll come get you at about 9:15. And off she goes. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, this is frightening. I almost don't want to tell you this, but then I have to tell you this. In the corner was a used condom. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It was hideous. So I tried to straighten things up and kind of wipe things out. I ran the water out of the faucet. It was rusted, so there's no way I was going to be taking a shower. I don't know when the last time I showered was, but I wasn't going to shower. And I have that toilet paper, thank God, that my friends gave me. Oh, see how people can be led by the Lord? These Christians stuck a roll of toilet paper, thought they were probably just, I don't know. Have you ever done stuff like that? You're like, oh, this is no big deal. It saved me. So I wiped some things up and tried to clean as best I could. I slept in my clothes because there's no way on earth I was going to touch those sheets. And in the night, the cockroaches crawled on me so badly that I would slap them in the night. I'd feel something, I'd slap it, and I smashed a cockroach on my arm. Oh my word, it was horrible. And I have to tell you, have you ever heard a big semi truck slam on its brakes? You know that sound it makes? That sounds more like a rooster, but you know what I mean, that sound that those air brakes, that was the sound going on in my head. Because this wasn't the bargain I had thought it would be. This was not what I had bargained for. It was filthy. It was hideous. It was disgusting. There, thank the Lord, my friends packed me my little lunches. I couldn't drink the water. I had this big container of water that someone from Finland had prepared for me. God bless them. People led by the Spirit, knowing I was going to need that or die. So I knew then I had definitely made a mistake. So I wasn't going to teach in Russia. That was a nice little fairy tale. Terry fail. That's what it was. A Terry fail. And my dad was probably praising God, thinking and praying for me, thinking, I know, God, you're not going to make her go there. So I got through the night. I had thank the Lord, I brought all my papers to grade and books I needed to read and papers I was trying to write. Praise God. We didn't have the telephone to entertain us like we do now. We didn't have internet like we do now to entertain us and keep us, blinded by what's around us. I just had myself, a book, and my papers to grade. So finally, I woke up in the morning. Oh, it was horrible. And I had some of those Kentucky Fried Chicken handy wipes. And so I kind of cleaned myself off and had a little bite from my Finnish friends' sack lunches. God bless them. And packed up all my suitcases because I was taking the midnight train back to Helsinki that night because I had to get back to Oklahoma. So at 8:45 in the morning, Olga Gennadzovna came and got me, and I had all my suitcases and everything packed, and I got out of there. And, there was the classic, how did you sleep? Oh, and so then we get to the rector's office, and I go into the rector's office. It's a giant room. It's an older building, and it's a giant room, wood-paneled, wood floors. And he had this kind of small desk in this giant room. So I go in, and behind his desk is this huge painting of Vladimir Lenin. And other than Mao's, which I've seen Mao's painting on Tiananmen, on Tiananmen Square, but that's supposed to be the largest portrait, a painting in the world, and I think it probably is. But this was gigantic. I had never seen one. I was trying to figure out how they painted a picture like that of him. And as I'm looking at it, the rector is very proud of it, and he's sitting at his desk. I'm sitting on the other side. Someone's brought us tea because there's no coffee in the whole place. Coffee shortage. So I'm looking at that painting of Vladimir Lenin, and the rector goes, "This picture of Lenin will never come down." I'm like, okay, I don't care because I'd already made up my mind, people. I wasn't going back. So we started with the interview, and he told me that they would like to hire me, and he was grateful. He was, polite. He spoke pretty decent English. We were alone. There was nobody translating. And he said, we're willing to offer you 300 rubles a month. Well, you see, all I want to do is have him, cry chicken. I just want him to be the one that backs out of the contract negotiations. So I go, oh no, 300 won't work because there's triple economy. And when people find out I'm an American, they charge me 3 times for anything, bread, taxis. If they find out I'm American, there's triple economy. So no, 300 won't work. And he goes, well, how much do you want? And I go, 900. And he goes, that's what I make. 925. And I go, okay, 925. Because I'm wanting to back out, He goes, okay, we do 925 rubles. You have same salary as rector. That is good. Okay. And I'm like, no. So then I go, and I'm going to need a public transport pass because I don't think I should have to pay for public transportation. So I'd like a monthly transport pass. He writes it down. Monthly transportation pass, check. I'm like, okay. And I go, and I need a hot meal because I don't have a kitchen in, because they were going to put me up in the prophylactory. They were going to put me in the prophylactory. That was where free housing. That he was so proud. We have free housing for you. We will put you in prophylactory. The room you stay in, that will be your room. So I go, And then I said, well, I need a hot meal because I can't cook. There's no kitchen there or anything. And he goes, no problem. We have excellent cafeteria. You have a hot meal every day. Okay, what else? And I go, and I would like a Russian tutor. I want the best Russian tutor so I can learn the language. Excellent. Everyone will want to teach American teacher Russian. Got it. No problem. I'm like, oh my word. So as I'm sitting there, I realize I'm going to have to really do something to shock this guy out of contract negotiations. So I say to him, and I'm a very strong evangelical born-again Christian who believes Jesus is the Son of God and he's my very best friend. So I will be sharing my faith with everyone who will listen. And he looks at me and he goes, okay, we have problem right now in Soviet Union. So it'd be very good. Our students will be very interested to learn about your American Christian faith. You can do lecture once a month on this. It's no problem. Oh my word. Oh my word. So I go, okay. And he goes, here, sign contract. And I go, well, I need to read it. So he goes, it's in Russian. And I go, yeah, so I'm going to need it in English. So maybe I can, sign it later or something. And he goes, okay, I get Olga to translate and then you sign, okay? And I go, okay, that's good. Olga comes and gets me, interview's over. He says to me, so welcome to Moskovsky Textilny Institute. We're so glad that you will be our first foreign American English teacher. Welcome. Thanks. Bye. So Olga Gennadzovna takes me over to the department. We have a bite of lunch with all of the foreign teachers. Everybody's real kind and sweet, and I like them. And everybody's brought some little potluck meal, and we're eating. And then Olga wants to take me to some museums, and so we do that for a while. And then it's time for me to go get on my train, which I'm eagerly anticipating. As we say here in Kansas, it was time to get out of Dodge. Okay, so we get to the train station, and Olga's helping me carry my stuff to the train, and I've got my ticket, and she's organized. They had me in with a man. It's a 2-bed sleeper. It's a sleeper train. It was 2 beds, and when we got on the train, the other guy was my roommate, and I'm like, nah. So Olga went around, found another woman, traded places with that man. So I had a female roommate for the night. Thank you, Olga Gennadzovna. So I got settled, and I'm walking Olga off of the train car, and she's getting off of there, and she takes my hand. She takes actually my wrist, and the train is starting to give the signal that it's going to move, and she takes a hold of that, and I'm telling you, that woman had a grip, death grip, and she grabs my wrist, almost cuts off the circulation, and she looks me in the eye, and she says, Teresa, do not change your mind. Please. We need you. Do not change your mind. Please. You must come back. Only it wasn't that gentle. It felt more like mafia. It was more like, you better come back. It was frightening, actually. And she wouldn't let go. Please, answer me. And I'm like, I am not going to answer her. I will be lying because I ain't never coming back here. I'm never coming back here. It's the most horrible place I've ever been. And I just looked at her and I went, and the train is, making the noise like, deet, 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 time to go. She's gripping, death grip. And we start moving a little bit and I go, okay. And she lets go of my wrist. And I make it back to Helsinki, and my lovely friends are there, and they want to know the report, and I'm ashamed. Like I said, it was a Terry fail instead of a fairy tale. So next week, I want to tell you about what happens with my Moscow Fall 91 tale stories. But thank you so much for joining me. I just wanted to tell you this because sometimes when we think doing God's will, following God, going to the mission field, or whatever he's called us to do, sometimes we can have this sense that he'll cloak us and it'll be wonderful and it'll be a dream come true. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes the places he calls us to are difficult. I mean, remember Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he says, when the Lord calls a man, he bids him come and die. And I want to tell you about what ended up happening, because remember we've got the August coup. August 1991 was the big Soviet coup, and the Soviet Union fell down. All right. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being a part of Vlog Friday. If you like Vlog Friday, be sure and subscribe. Those subscriptions let me know that people are watching. I also really appreciate the comments and the words of encouragement. And most importantly, I love to be able to tell you about what God has done in my life so that maybe you'll feel encouraged. Maybe it'll be uplifting. I hope so. I always want these stories to bring glory to the Lord. All right, till next week, this has been Vlog Friday with Terry McCarthy, a part of my Truth Matters program. Blessings, love you, and I'll see you next week.